All right, let's go over some of these answers to this Coyote practice test. Number one, remember a big goal of this course is to improve your score with the Coyote test as long as the ACT. So let's see if we can learn from some of the mistakes that we might have had from this test. So number one, an eastbound car is going 4 miles per hour faster than the westbound car. The cars are 208 miles apart after 2 hours. What is the speed in miles per hour of the eastbound car? So the eastbound car is going a little bit faster. Honestly, I would use the answers here. I would start with the first guy. So if the eastbound car is going 54 miles per hour, that means the westbound car has to be going 50 miles per hour, and we are going for a duration of 2 hours. So which would mean if this is going 54 miles per hour, they went 108 miles. The westbound car would then go 100 miles. So if we add up those 2 miles, right? So we went east 108 miles, we went west 100 miles. That would be a total distance of 208 miles. So, using the answers, like I said, actually our guess and check worked out pretty well here. So one thing to kind of maybe think about, if I picked that 54 and, we got an answer of like 230 miles, right? That's too many miles to go. So we would have to choose something, maybe smaller. So guess like a 50 or something. Kind of gauge where you're at with that. Number two, if a man walks at a rate of 2 feet per second, how many minutes will it take him to walk the 4320 feet? So this is a unit conversion. It wants us to convert seconds to minutes. So if we went 44,320 feet, let's figure out how long or how far we went in feet per second. So 4320 divided by the 2. So we went 2,160 feet per second, but we want minutes, right? So we need to convert seconds to minutes. Well, there's 60 seconds in a minute, so I'm going to divide that by a 60, right? So that's going to take us down to a 36. You probably do a lot of unit conversion if you've taken a chemistry class. Number three, we are solving. We have a quadratic here. So remember, we can either solve by factoring or we use quadratic formula, solve by taking square roots. There's a lot of different options we can take here. One thing to notice how all the answers have this square root being divided by something. That should look like the quadratic formula. So it looks like the answers are in a quadratic formula, so that kind of gives you an indication of you probably need to use the quadratic formula. Remember, it's a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. And remember, the a is the x squared, the b is the x, the c is the constant. Biggest thing also remember here, it is set equal to 0. Okay, so let's just kind of fill in our values here. So this is going to be a negative b. My b is a negative 5, so that's negative, negative, so it's a positive 5. Plus or minus the square root of b squared. Again, as b is a negative 5, which is 20, or 5 squared is 25. Minus 4 times my value of a, which is 1. My value of c is a negative 1. I'm going to go ahead and clean this mess up. So we have a negative 4 times a negative 1, which is positive 4, which means 25 plus 4 is 29. So we have 5 plus or minus the square root of 29, all being divided by 2 times a being 1, so we're dividing by 2. Okay, and it just wants one of the solutions. Remember, the quadratic formula gives it the positive case and the negative case, so we actually have 2 solutions kind of wrapped up into one. So go through and see if we have one of those answers. Well, this is 5 minus the square root of 29 over 2. So it would have been this case down here. We know that's the correct answer, so we're on our way and go. Number 4, we have a linear equation here that we are asked to solve. Remember, solving, get the x on the side by itself. So I'm going to leave the x value alone. I'm going to subtract the 56 from both sides. So now I have a negative 7x is equal to what? A negative 54. And if I divide both sides by a negative 7, negative 54 over negative 7 doesn't simplify, but the biggest thing to remember is you have a negative over negative, so that's going to make it a positive. So we have answer B, positive 54 over 7. Moving right along here, we've got some exponent rules. Actually, we're going to get into this chapter here in a little bit. So we've got parentheses. Everything in parentheses has to be raised to the second power. So let's start with our coefficient. I've got a -6, all in parentheses, being squared. Negative times a negative gives me a positive, so that's going to be a positive 36. You know, if we look at some of our answers, that has a negative, that has a negative, that has a negative, right? So now we're down to a 50-50 shot. Well, when we have a power raised to a power, we multiply. So 4 times 2 is 8, right? So they kind of throw a decoy out here. If you were to add the exponents, remember, when power is to a power, we multiply. 4 times 2 takes us to the 8. So the answer is D. And number 6, a graph of a line with the equation in slope-intercept form crosses the x-axis when x is what? So in order for us to be on the x-axis, the value of y has to be 0. So in this particular case, if I want my value of x when y is 0, we're going to sub 0 in for y, right? So because when y is 0, we know we're hanging out on the x-axis. So I'm going to just substitute this in. So now 0 is equal to 7x plus 8. Again, it wants the value of x. So now we're going to solve for x. I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. And then this is stuck by multiplication. So I'm going to divide both sides by 7. So it looks like x is equal to -8/7. Looks like we have B. Okay, so I'm going to make, instead of making one giant video, I'm going to make a video for every 6 questions. So